Breaking news tonight as global tensions reach a critical juncture. President Trump delivered a diplomatic bombshell today.
President Donald Trump at the White House just moments ago saying that he will soon announce details of a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We're going to be announcing later on, we're going to have a meeting with Russia. We'll start off with Russia, and we'll announce a location. I think the location will be a very popular one for a lot of reasons.
Now, those comments come the same exact day that Trump's self-imposed deadline was set to expire. He had told President Putin to come to the table to end the war in Ukraine, prepare to face punishing sanctions. We start things off with CNN's Kristen Holmes from the North Lawn in the White House. Kristen, we are standing by for more details on this meeting that is supposed to be announced later today. But the president had a lot to say about the dynamics at that event. What else did he say?
The announcement comes as his self-imposed deadline for Putin to come to the negotiating table has arrived, yet instead of the threatened sanctions, we're seeing diplomatic engagement. The president has emphasized the urgency of ending a conflict that claims thousands of lives every week, stating his primary goal is to save lives and prevent a wider conflict.
Dying, and I think we're getting very close, and we're going to be announcing later on, we're going to have a meeting with Russia. We'll start off with Russia, and we'll announce a location. I think the location will be a very popular one for a lot of reasons. But we'll be announcing that a little bit later. I just don't want to do it now because of the importance of what we just did.
Can I completely understand?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Follow-up. Are you surprised that Zelensky hasn't figured out by now, in years of war, how to deal with you and to deal with Putin without needing permission to make concessions from his parliament or from a national referendum?
Well, he's going out and getting what he needs. You know, he's not authorized to do certain things. I said, well, you're going to have to get it fast because, you know, we're getting very close to a deal. And he's doing that, and he's working with the European nations, and they're terrific people, terrific leaders, NATO. And as you know, I became very friendly with them. They agreed to go from 2% to 5%, 2% that they...
The meeting, scheduled for Alaska this Friday, marks the first face-to-face encounter between American and Russian leaders since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The choice of Alaska as the venue is particularly symbolic. American territory that was purchased from Russia over 150 years ago. But it's the substance of what might be discussed that has the international community on edge. Perhaps the most controversial aspect of these negotiations involves the future of Ukrainian territory.
He, when asked about this, if that was in a plan, instead he kind of danced around it. He said that this is territory that they've fought over for 3.5 years, that a lot of Russians have died, and then he added a lot of Ukrainians have died. And then he said, we're going to be looking to give some territories back, to swap some territories, and then he called it very complicated. Now, very complicated to say the least. This is incredibly complicated, and there are a lot of sides that have to buy into this. And we do know that the U.S. has been floating a deal that would have these kinds of ceding of territory to Russia to European allies. Part of that being because they want European buy-in on any plan before President Trump sits down with Vladimir Putin. Now, the other thing I thought was interesting in this conversation was that he said that he believes that Vladimir Putin wants peace. Obviously, we heard Trump say that several weeks ago, but the last several weeks since then, he has had nothing but really angry and frustrated comments when he was asked about...
The president has acknowledged the complexity of the situation, noting that both Russians and Ukrainians have died fighting over these territories for 3.5 years. He suggested that some form of territorial arrangement might be necessary to achieve peace, describing the situation as very complicated, but indicating that both sides might benefit from certain adjustments. However, Ukrainian leadership has made their position crystal clear.
No one will retreat from this, and Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier. Any decisions that are against us, any decisions that are without Ukraine, are at the same time decisions against peace. They will not achieve anything. These are dead solutions. They will never work.
Zelensky's remarks are notable given that President Trump yesterday floated the idea that Russia and Ukraine could swap territories.
It's very complicated, but we're going to get some back. We're going to get some switched. There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
But the Ukrainian constitution mandates a national referendum for any territorial concessions, meaning Zelensky can't unilaterally authorize any changes over land. So we'll see how Zelensky's comment lands with the president. It's also unclear right now if a trilateral meeting between President Trump, Putin, and Zelensky will happen. That was mentioned as a possibility, but Putin has dismissed the idea.
President Zelensky has categorically stated that Ukraine cannot and will not cede any territory to Russia, emphasizing that their constitution prohibits such actions and that any peace agreement made without Ukrainian participation would be stillborn. He's warned that decisions made without Ukraine are decisions against peace that will never work. The diplomatic implications of this summit extend far beyond the immediate participants. Former Ambassador Michael McFaul and other experts have raised serious concerns about the precedent being set. They point out that this meeting represents an extraordinary diplomatic victory for Putin.
Any leader in the world to sit down with the President of the United States of America. When I worked for President Obama and planned summits with Russian leaders and other countries, we always knew that this was something we were giving them, and we expected something in return. And what I think is wrong about this sequencing is I worry that Putin will get the gift. He'll get the gift of sitting next to the United States president in the United States of America, by the way, in Alaska, a part of the former Russian Empire, by the way, that some Russian nationalists still think that they need back. They should have got back, that we hoodwinked them. Just an odd choice in my view. But I hope the president and his team are thinking very hard about that question right now, because they've already given the gift. It's already there. Putin already wins just by showing up. This president always talks about being transactional. What are we, the American people, getting in return? What are our European allies getting? And what are our Ukrainian partners getting in return? That's the big unanswered question today.
But in terms of transaction, you have Trump, who's already backtracked.
The Russian president, who faces travel restrictions to many countries due to international sanctions and war crime allegations, will now stand alongside the American president on U.S. soil, gaining the legitimacy and recognition that such a meeting provides. European allies have also weighed in, with Britain, France, and Germany issuing a joint statement emphasizing that Ukraine must be involved in any PCE decisions and that international borders cannot be changed by force. They're watching nervously as negotiations appear to be moving forward without Ukrainian representation at the table. The stakes couldn't be higher. Military analysts warn that any territorial concessions without proper security guarantees could simply provide Russia with a pause to regroup and prepare for future aggression. They emphasize that ceding fortified positions would put Russia in a favorable position for potential westward expansion in the future. Any meaningful peace agreement would need to include robust security guarantees, possibly including NATO membership or other international commitments to prevent a third Russian invasion. As we await the outcome of Friday's summit, the world watches to see whether this meeting will bring us closer to peace or simply reward aggression. The absence of Ukraine from these talks raises fundamental questions about the legitimacy and durability of any agreement that might emerge. What's clear is that the decisions made in Alaska will have profound implications, not just for Ukraine and Russia, but for the entire international order and the principle that sovereign borders cannot be changed through military force. The coming days will test whether diplomacy can succeed where military action has failed, but at what cost remains to be seen.